Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons IRL wisdom captured in the wild, right? And today what I want to talk about is recognizing your own class and recognizing the class of others that you encounter IRL using your Dungeons & Dragons True Sight goggles, right? The wisdom, the knowledge you gain from the game to recognize the classes when you see them. Now, first of all, let's jump into this. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to recognize the classes of the people around you, the real world people around you, if you're going to recognize their classes, right, the first thing you need to do is drop it down to the core four, right? Don't even attempt this with the I think there's 12 classes in the game right now, core classes. You want to pull this back to the game's classic four, right? Fighter Wizard and Rogue Cleric, okay? With those four, today I was able to identify two of these classes. I saw them very clearly, right? Excuse me. Now, when you're in IRL, right, when you're going about your business, and you want to do this, you want to capture what classes the people around you are, right? Look for dynamic clues, right? If you're in a place and you're not doing something dynamic, it's probably going to be hard to tell this, right? But sometimes there are moments in life, right? As you go about, you should be able to see this when you're adventuring in life, when you're doing something you normally don't do, when you're exploring, when you're interacting, when you're combating your own deficiencies. These are the times you should be looking around and saying, are there clues to what my class is? And are there clues to what other people's classes are around me, right? So I had one of those moments today. So I went into the city and I was bicycling in Philadelphia, right? Actually, I went to bicycle in Philadelphia. So I drive 20 miles, all right, 20 miles into the city, right? I got my bike, I got all my gear. I get there and I went, oh, I don't have all my gear. I was missing my helmet. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm not doing 60 miles today for a bike ride, right? I'm not driving 20 miles back and then 20 miles there. Now, fortunately, my family has done very well recently, and I work hard, right? We got a little cheddar, right? And so I was like, hey, I'll solve this problem with money. I'm gonna buy a helmet, so I'm in the city, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a helmet. Now, what's interesting is, I talked to my wife. I was like, hey, is my helmet still home? She's like, yeah, your helmet's home, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, I'll park in I don't pay for parking, right? When I go into the city, I find free parking, and then I ride to wherever I'm going to ride to, right? And it's just a principle thing. So we get in there, and I'm like, and I don't have a helmet right now, right? So I need a helmet. So I'm like, hey, maybe I'll just park my car and then I'll ride to the bicycle shop. And she's like, how far is that? I'm like, it's about 1.5 miles, right? And she's like, without a helmet, right? And I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I'm thinking the same thing, right? So here's the thing, right? I don't ride my bike without my helmet, ever, right? And this has been this way. Now, I did when I was a kid, which that was in the 70s, right? In the 80s. It was a different time, right? Helmets weren't a thing then, but they are now, right? And this dome, this brain you're looking at, right? Not only does it have a ton of Dungeons & Dragons knowledge in it, it's got 20 years of tech information in it, right? So there's I'm not kidding, 30 applications I could talk for an hour on, right? There's tech subjects I could talk for 3 hours on without notes, right? My brain has got a lot of knowledge in it, right? And in my house, I'm not joking, we don't even call them helmets. I always say, where's my brain bucket, right? Because that's what it is. It protects this super dope brain with a whole bunch of arcane information in it. And so when me and my wife were like, you cannot ride a bicycle 1.5 miles without a helmet, because you might crack your skull and lose that, awesome, actually, provider brain, right? Our family, we have a structure where, actually, I make the money, I bring it in, my wife takes care of everything else and has all access to all money. I literally get $60 every 2 weeks. She has all access. I don't even know where our accounts are, right? It's just the structure of our lives, right? And we're like, yeah, we can't risk, my brain cannot even take a dent, right? I need a helmet, right? So I was like, okay, so we're worried that we're going to lose this arcade knowledge in my head. So I'm standing at this, friendly local bike shop in Philadelphia, waiting for someone to bring me out, because it's the pandemic, right? A helmet, right? That I'm going to buy. I spent $50 for that helmet, right? And it saved me $40 of 40 miles of driving, right? For us, we've reached a point where time is a lot more valuable than money, right? I don't know if you guys have reached that, but I've definitely reached that point in my life, right? I have way more money than I have time, right? So I'm standing there, and I'm like, boy, what a poofter you are. You're standing here because you wouldn't even ride 1.5 miles without a bicycle helmet. And I look to my right? And there is a dude standing on, I'm not kidding, 50 feet, actually probably 40 feet. 40 feet of scaffolding, right? And he is working in the place where I bought my helmet, right? It was a very, very high-end place in Philadelphia. These were like $1 million row homes. And that's not a joke. They literally cost $1 million, right? And they were refurnishing the brick. So this dude is standing 40 feet in the sky on this rickety scaffolding. And I look up and I'm like, you wouldn't even ride 1.5 miles without a brain bucket, right? Without protecting your head, right? That dude is standing 40 feet in the sky without ropes, without any kind of thing, 40 feet in the sky, and his feet were 6 inches from a 40-foot fall into a pile of rubble that has rebar sticking out. If he fell, he died, period. There's no two ways about it, right? Just none, right? Because there was all this crap on the ground, right? And he's just right up there trusting the scaffolding, trusting himself, right? And then he said he's having a conversation with his buddy who's also working, and he goes, oh yeah, if he did that, he's gonna do federal time. He's gonna go to a state prison, not a jail, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that dude is a fighter, right? And you are a wizard, right? That guy is ready to get in the mix. He is going to go right up to the target. He doesn't need to fight from distance, right? When it comes to life, he is right there on the risk, right? Right at the edge of risk, right? Where I could not be farther from risk, right? I'm way in the back, fringing, right? And this guy is probably right at the edge of risk in his life. You could tell that from his conversation. You could tell that from where he was standing. You could tell that from how he was standing, right? That's how you recognize, and as you go through these dynamic moments in life, you can get some clues as to what class you are, right? I think I'm a wizard, right? I don't know the level yet, right? And I know for a fact that dude standing on that scaffolding, that was a fighter, right? If I ever saw one. This is again, thank you for letting me share this with you. This is where I'm at right now. I'm saying, hey, I've been playing D&D since I was 12 years old. So that's 1982, right? So that means that I have been playing for 18 years plus 21 years for 39 years, right? And I got 4 decades of knowledge from this game. I want to use it. I want to leverage it. And I think that when we use D&D IRL, when we use the true sight goggles of D&D, we can see the world in a simpler form that I think has value, that will allow us to make better decisions and decisions that are clearer to us because we have mapped a layer over the world that we understand. I know this is out there. I appreciate your patience. I love, if you have any advice on how to use the D&D IRL true sight goggles that I am now donning, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful, wonderful millennium.